there's a lot of companies that are based on the price of compute right now. And like the irons of the world,
Yeah.
That's already happening. I just don't think you need anything complex like this.
Well, I agree with you that we don't need anything complex. And this whole build out is based off of like an estimate of compute needed in years down the line.
Sure.
And it's like, I mean, if we go back to dark fiber, that was literally exactly what was happening. I mean, there was the internet boom.
Yeah.
They built out a ton of fiber because they were like, every company is going to need internet. Every company is going to have a huge demand. Every consumer is going to use internet. And it was true. Everyone did. But the fact of the matter is the build out was exponentially more than what was needed in that exact moment.
But I don't
so
think we're
most
there
of the
yet.
fiber sat unused
Right.
for many years. And the problem is as we know, being too early and being wrong is the same thing.
Except right now, in that allegory, every piece of fiber is being used. So like every available
every fiber is being used now,
yes.
30 years later.
But that's the thing, is the build out is being consumed right now. Everything that is created is being used. At some point, that might not be the case.
Right. So that's the point, though. Like in the early days of the internet, it was all being used. So then every company came in and then built out more fiber.
Right.
So
but what we're saying is like the fiber build out is a future thing. What we're talking about right now is synthesizing compute that exists.
Yes. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it necessarily, they're trying to commoditize it because it's more profitable for them to commoditize.
Right.
And whether or not that's a good idea or not, I guess the world won't know until it's actually done.
Welcome to the Compound Growth Podcast with Colin and Wheeler, where we talk all things growth, from financial growth to career growth, personal development to societal progress. We explore how each layer builds on the next, compounding over time to shape who we become. Each week, we break down complex ideas and emerging trends into clear, actionable insights. Because growth isn't just about numbers. It's about understanding the world and our place in it.
Have you ever heard of MapTap?
Okay. What is it?
MapTap.
This isn't like a hunting thing.
No,
Okay.
It is a app that is pretty fun. I've been doing this the last few mornings. My friend turned me on to this.
It's an app.
It is an app,
Okay.
and it is a quiz every morning where you have a globe. And then it gives you 5 locations in the world, getting progressively more difficult.
Okay.
And you scroll around the globe and you tap the globe to see how close you can get geographically.
How zoomed in are you? How accurate do you need?
You can get pretty zoomed.
Okay.
So like as an example, one of them was Barcelona this morning. So find Barcelona on a map.
Sure.
Which doesn't sound that difficult. But
Right.
the thing is nothing is labeled on the globe. It is just an empty globe.
Oh.
So you can zoom in though and see lights in certain areas. But the thing is I tapped the wrong city in Spain, but I was very close. I was only like 100 miles off.
It's inland, right?
It is inland.
North
but well, actually it's not that inland. It is coastal, but it's more up kind of north in the north band of Spain.
Yeah. North. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Barcelona.
Anyway, it's really fun. So anybody that's into geography, I would recommend checking out MapTap. My friend turned me onto it, and it's actually really great. And you compete with your friends.
That part I could enjoy. Were you into geography before you got this app sent to you?
Yes. For some reason, I am growing old mentally at a very quick rate. I am obsessed with World War II history. Now I'm obsessed with geography. I'm really into searing steaks lately. Like all my news feeds are about getting the perfect sear on your steak at home, smoking meats, like all that sort of thing.
Dude, you talked about this stuff a year ago. You were like, there are 3 categories.
I'm getting deeper into
now you're all of them.
Now I've also picked up geography.
Okay.
So, anyway, anyone that's looking for a fun thing to compete with, I will happily compete with you if you want to hop in with it. I'm not very good.
Oh no, dude, I would be so bad.
One of them was a city in Afghanistan this morning. I had no idea Afghanistan was so close to India. I thought it was up by Saudi Arabia.
I did know that, but only because I feel like everything that's going on with the Iran war has increased everybody's understanding of that
geography.
Yeah.
That section. Yeah. So that one I got butchered on. But anyway, regardless. Cool news today.
Tell us the cool news that is only 30 minutes old as of this podcast recording on Wednesday, August 19th.
So as I'm preparing, I'm sitting on my desk and Dan,
Oh
Dan,
boy, Dan,
of
our
course.
constant news source.
He turns over and he goes, "Hey, did you see what happened with Moderna?" And I was like, "No." And he goes, check the ticker.
I gotta tell you, if I was running late today, so I didn't get that moment with Dan first thing before our podcast.
I got the moment because you weren't here. You usually get the moment.
I know what it feels like too. I've been there. I've been like, oh yeah, that moment where Dan's like gonna cue you in on one thing that you're gonna be excited to talk about in the podcast.
Right before the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I wonder if he knows. I wonder if he knows to do that the morning of the podcast. But
it's
Moderna,
it's a game he's playing with us.
It is.
Tell us. Okay.
Moderna is up 130% today in a single day.
Were people short Moderna? Is that a squeeze?
No, it is not a squeeze.
Come on.
They had a huge breakthrough today with an mRNA shot with a cancer approval going through like phase 3 trials today. So basically what they did is they are taking tumors. So, well, let me back up. So have you ever heard of Keytruda?
This is Colin's science corner where he gets to explain things poorly.
Yeah, I feel like I need to explain things before I go into this mRNA. Have you ever heard of Keytruda?
Keytruda, I have seen all the commercials for Keytruda.
So Keytruda was the #1 selling drug until GLP-1s actually became huge last year. But it is essentially a cancer drug, a cancer shot. And it was actually most of Merck's revenue going back, and it was released about 14 years ago, but was proclaimed to be the, I'll say, biggest breakthrough in cancer research in history, and one of the biggest cancer breakthroughs just in general. So essentially what Keytruda does is it's an immunotherapy drug. And if you think about cancer and the way that cancer works, like cancer is obviously an invasive thing for your body. And what it does is it hides from your immune system. And what Keytruda does is essentially helps avoid that trick that cancer does. So it basically helps reveal the cancer a little bit more to your body so that way it can fight it off better.
Right. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So that became like a huge thing, but it's not like 100% successful. It's not like if you get the Keytruda shot, if you've got like metastasized melanoma, like that's just going to, you're good at that point.
Yeah.
But what it did is it took survival rates up very dramatically after that shot was introduced. So Moderna has been working actually with an AI company, which I'll talk about here in a second, to basically do a tack-on shot using mRNA. So basically what they do is they take a sample of your tumor and then they use AI research and basically they create a specialized mRNA shot for you that reveals the cancer even more so. And apparently the success of this shot has been very, very positive, and it just got approved for, well, essentially it just got completed phase 3 trials and was incredibly successful.
I think Moderna has had a hard time getting things approved with the current administration.
Their stock has gotten smoked over the last few years.
Do you know what the short interest is in the stock? Like the
I assume
of
it's
shares?
huge.
Well, this is why I'm saying, is there short squeeze?
Yeah.
Because the average S&P 500 company has a short interest of maybe 2.5%. That's not even saying like you should expect that. That's skewed, obviously. That's the marginal rate. But 2.5% is the average. The typical S&P 500 short interest. Moderna's at 13%.
Yeah. So 10x.
Yeah, it's pretty high.
It's a pretty big short squeeze. Yeah.
It's 8x high. So I think that when you see, if you're an investor and you see activity like this, it's funny because Dan and I were just talking about Morgan Housel's latest podcast. And one of the things he was talking about was typical, like, not jargon, but financial phrases that he doesn't align with. And
Morgan Housel.
Yeah. And one of the phrases he mentioned was buy low, sell high. And the reason that he doesn't like that phrase is it suggests that there's a selling point. It's basically, it's not investing, it's trading. It's basically you try to buy something, write it up and sell it. And that's trading versus investing.
Well, also, right? I don't know if he was talking about this, but we've talked about it on the podcast too. Just because something's high doesn't necessarily mean it's expensive.
Sure. Yes. That's definitely true, but that's not what he was referring to.
Yeah.
He was referring to the sage advice of buy low and sell high. He was basically comparing that to planting a tree. You don't plant a tree so you can cut it down and burn it in your fire pit, right?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. So he feels like it's important to focus on investing versus trading. And the plan to sell is only when you need money.
I can say our largest clients that I can think of off the top of my head all became very wealthy because they had stock that they never sold.
Right. And that's something we've talked about a lot in this
Right.
podcast. And something I think even just 10 years ago when we were working with some of these clients, we didn't feel that effect as much as we do now because the compound growth over the last 10 years has been insane on some of these stocks. If you own Moderna waking up today on Wednesday, August 19th, you might want to sell. Right? Because this is one of those where it's like, I hate when this happens to stocks that I want to hold for the long term, because the question is, like, is it a bad idea to lock in 137% one day profit? Now, who knows what you're in at and how much you're down coming into this?
Yeah, I know. That's the tricky part. It depends on your buy-in price. Like if you bought 4 weeks ago, I don't know. But
Right.
like if you've, been riding this thing for the last 2 years just down and down and down.
Yeah.
Now you have an opportunity to get out with a profit.
And maybe it will continue up from here. But I think when you see a move like this, I look at that as this doesn't make a lot of sense. It's
No, of course
fairly
not.
irrational. And
It
I
is.
know that there's heavily, there's some squeezed shorts here absolutely at play. I expect this price will come down. I could sell it and then maybe buy it again and ride it back up. Or you just got to deal with the fact that
It's going to be a wild ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's funny about this is Moderna's up 137%, but Tempus AI, who is the AI company that's essentially behind all of this. So you have Moderna that's working through all the trials and whatnot. But what they're doing is they're taking the sample of the tumor and then they're sending it to Tem, which is basically doing like kind of all the back end AI work to try to develop the sequence of the shot.
Yeah.
So Tempest is actually a very interesting company. It's basically in partnership with Merck too, because they're the ones that are doing all of the AI build out on the back end, because all of these mRNA shots are personalized to you. It's not like they just have these shots on the shelf.
Yeah.
So it's specific to your tumor, and they're only up 12% today.
Yeah. Well,
So, you look at that and it's just kind of like, that's kind of crazy.
well, they're not like, their profit doesn't skyrocket the same way that Moderna's can, right? Like it just because
they don't own the drug.
They've provided the service already.
But basically, I mean, if you look at Tem in general, like they're the back end of all of this. And I think about the gold mine, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to own the shovels.
I don't know if that's necessary. I think if you're looking at AI and you're saying this is all a bubble, this is all ridiculous, blah, 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 what you want to see is the downfield benefits to this. You want to see the other companies that are not AI companies benefiting from their investment in AI and getting that ROI that everybody's like, I don't know if we're going to see the ROI.
Right.
I don't know if I want to own Micron for the next 10 years personally, because I feel like a lot of the value that Micron is going to create has been pulled forward. Whereas some of these downfield companies that have long track records of being really well run and not cyclical,
Right.
they are going to continue to benefit from that investment for years to come.
Oh, yeah. And you think about us as a consumer. I mean, just in the last 10 to 12 years of cancer research is like crazy. And I mean, they really started testing this really with melanoma, but they're moving into a bunch of other, cancers now. They're looking at bladder cancer. So this is going to be a pretty innovative and pretty massive thing, I think, over the next 5 to 10 years. So we'll see what ends up happening. But
exciting stuff.
It is very exciting stuff. And it's amazing because, all this is kind of brought to you by AI. I hate to say it in a lot of ways. And people are talking about the benefits of stuff. And I think people think mostly about ChatGPT, but you think about the effects on medicine and all these other different fields.
That's what I mean.
It's really, really cool. So to your point, I think like certainly, there are companies that are at the forefront of AI that you hear about all the time. But then there are the companies on the back end that are using AI to develop new products and new science and things like that.
Yeah.
That the consumer benefits from. And if the consumer's benefiting from it, that company will benefit too by sales.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I think people, when they think about the AI investment, they think about the people who are empowering AI more than anything else.
Yeah.
And then they think about the potentially disrupted companies, right? Well, this,
Yeah.
Obviously, Claude is going to destroy Schwab, right? Or like,
Yeah.
Salesforce is going to go to business because everybody's just going to have their own personal CRMs. Salesforce couldn't provide that. But I think that this is the next step to it. It's thinking about the impact. And this is why the market is doing so well. It's broadening because a lot of these companies are starting to experience the benefits. And it's not because they might someday experience the benefits, it's because they currently are.
Yeah. Well, I think the important distinction too is it's not necessarily the AI companies that are going to experience the benefits. It's the companies that are using AI that are experiencing the benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not to say that AI companies aren't doing well too, but
Dan and Zach, the intern, and I were looking at stocks the other day. And one of the stocks that Zach suggested, we kind of put him through this process where he did some research on, I think it was the Russell 1000,
okay.
possibly the 3000. We started with a lot of stocks, and
Big pool.
and he narrowed it down to 14, 15,
Okay.
something like that. And one of the stocks was one that Dan was familiar with, and it was a diabetes company, a company that provides medicine or equipment, I can't remember which, to treat diabetes. And I was like, I don't know if I would invest in the treatment for illness at this point.
Yeah, I'm always really hesitant on that stuff because it's so dependent on, well, one, legislation is like a
Sure.
huge thing. You
Yeah.
know, someone could come in and a lobbyist has huge control over that industry just in general. So
Yeah.
you're always subjected to whether or not something gets approved. But yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a dice roll.
But it's more to me the cure that, like, why invest in the treatment? The treatment is more profitable in general. Like you've seen
course.
companies like Gilead, for example, they
Yeah.
cured, hepatitis. I can't remember what they cured. They cured something, and it was a big blockbuster drug for them, but it cured. So it's not SaaS. It doesn't continue to provide.
There's no
that
recurring
service.
revenue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And treatment is recurring revenue. However, we live in a phase of life where we might be getting to the point where we're able to cure more and more and more. So investing in the treatment isn't necessarily, I'd rather invest personally in the care for people as they are able to age long and live longer because of all of these cures or advanced treatments.
Kaylee and I were talking about this yesterday, the Lindsay Clancy trial. So do you know about this?
Yeah.
So the Lindsay Clancy trial. So Kaylee was watching it yesterday and she was homesick from work. But long story short, we were sitting there on the couch. I was doing other things and I was just listening to it in the background. And she was suffering from postpartum depression. And as opposed to them kind of being like, how could we make you kind of feel better? Or maybe you need some time from work. She was on 13 different antidepressants in a matter of 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy to me that the way that our system is set up right now is to just like treat things, but not like find the cause and cure them because of the profitability of it.
Right. Well, I think first it's for her, it was postpartum psychosis. So it just,
Well, it started with depression.
Sure. Right. Yeah. But like the issue that it's easy if we don't point out that it was the psychosis aspect of it. It's easy
so
to
it
think
started
that's
with
what postpartum depression looks like.
So I mean, it started with
leads to-
depression, and then like a week or two later, it started to advance, and then it got more advanced. So they started prescribing more and more and more, and then that was it.
But I think that's that whole situation. We're going down a rabbit hole, but
Yeah.
it feels like it's symptomatic of a society that doesn't value women's health the same way that it values men's health. There's a lot of research dollars that go towards studying men's health, less that goes to studying women's health. And especially around childbirth, I think that there's not a lot of time that goes into understanding these situations. So you get to the point where you're bringing up where they don't know how to care for people.
Yeah.
So they overprescribe just a bunch of different things.
A ton of crap
just
with all these side effects.
Just throw shit at the wall and hope it works out. So it's tragic, but I think it's great that it is bringing a little bit more awareness to that situation.
Well, that's what we were talking about too, is as horrible of a situation this is, pretty much as bad as it could possibly get. It is starting to bring some awareness to the point that we really don't have great solutions or much knowledge in general about this type of problem. And it's kind of crazy that it got to this point, given how many doctors were involved.
Well, here we are, two white men talking about women's health again.
Changing topics.
Let's talk about Nvidia. Can we go back to
let's go back
the market
to Nvidia
a little bit? So last week, I was on vacation, but the world went on, apparently, without me. And I guess while I was out, Nvidia had sort of a town hall situation set up with CNBC where they brought on a bunch of large companies, large lenders,
Banks,
KKR, et cetera,
Yeah.
to talk about how else they could generate some value and wealth from this AI build out. And they have come up with the idea that they can basically treat compute, right, the power behind AI, as a commodity. And they will synthesize some compute notes, right, where they will guarantee performance of that compute investment for some period of time, and they'll pay you interest along the way. And they're basically, to some extent, becoming the bank of Nvidia. They're not actually going to. What's great about them is that they're not actually involved in any financial way. They're just arranging. They're matchmaking, right?
Yeah.
They're guaranteeing the product, but they're matchmaking.
So essentially, a bank can come in and build out a facility using Nvidia, and Nvidia will lend them the compute power, and you can even finance it if you want. And as they build this out, they will match customers to the person that is building out the infrastructure.
Yeah.
You want to know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like building out commercial businesses or commercial like spaces for businesses. Like if you are a developer, like let's just say you're Goldman Sachs, and you want to build an office building. So you build up this office building and then you try to find as many leasers as possible before it's completed.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day, you probably have some vacancy, but this is essentially what you're doing. And then you have the equity in there. The only difference that I find interesting is the fact that Nvidia is willing to buy back some of these compute powers after a certain period of time to ensure that it's not completely erroneous after 3 or 4 years.
But it's basically they're like guaranteeing and pledging. Basically, it's like when you're raising money for a charity or a foundation or something that you want donations. Pledges are great, but donations are money in your hand.
Right.
I think that my issue with the analogy to a building or to like the KKR was basically talking about, well, this is the same as, when we structure products like this for planes, right? Because the plane has an inherent value.
Yep.
So, the note essentially is supported by the value of the plane. That's how many planes are there, Colin? Do you think that are made how many planes does Boeing make any given year?
Boeing? Oh God.
You want to say
tens
it's a lot.
of thousands?
It's not. You want to say it's a lot. It's not. It's very, very small. And if you're Goldman Sachs and you're building a building, this is the equivalent of building a city and basically guaranteeing occupancy in every building in that city. And knowing that demand isn't going to slow down over the decade that you're building out that city.
But how do we know the
scale
demand isn't going to slow down though?
that you don't? That's my point.
Yeah.
They're making massive scale assumptions.
This is literally just the dark web coming back. Or not the dark web.
But a lot of this compute is going to be used. I just don't know that we need to overcomplicate things with creating a compute category for people to get paid interest on for that. Like, it's just, I don't know why we need to do that. We don't need this.
Well, I think the thing is they want people to adopt it quicker, and they want obviously to continue to sell these types of things. And like if you're Goldman Sachs in this instance, to shell out $100 billion in GPUs when in 3 to 4 years Nvidia's GPUs are going to be completely different, like that's a hard pill to swallow, because you need to build it out, you need the facility, you need the engineering, you need the electricity, you need all that stuff, and that's probably at least a 2 to 3 year build out, and then you have permitting on top of that. So you've bought in the GPUs, and by the time you're already done, they're already outdated. So then you need to redo it again.
Well, I think what they're saying is that these things are not outdated as quickly as people think.
That's their argument.
But I just, my point isn't whether or not this will work. I don't think we need to package synthesized obligations like we did with like the housing market, for example, to create a new income stream or a new value. The value's already there. If we talked about this earlier in the podcast, if companies are starting to see ROI from the creation of this AI utility, why do we also need to see, outside of stocks in those companies and bonds in those companies, a whole category of compute that's basically like asset allocation? You would have compute as a categorical allocation.
It's basically
yeah, a REIT or like some sort of, I think it's more like oil. It's the price of that compute will go up and down and treat it as something like that. There's a lot of companies that are based on the price of compute right now, and like the irons of the world.
Yeah.
That's already happening. I just don't think you need anything complex like this.
Well, I agree with you that we don't need anything complex, and this whole build out is based off of like an estimate of compute needed in years down the line.
Sure.
And it's like, I mean, if we go back to dark fiber, that was literally exactly what was happening. I mean, there was the internet boom.
Yeah.
They built out a ton of fiber because they were like, every company is going to need internet. Every company is going to have a huge demand. Every consumer is going to use internet. And it was true. Everyone did. But the fact of the matter is the build out was exponentially more than what was needed in that exact moment.
But I don't
so
think we're
most
there
of
yet.
the fiber sat unused for many years. And the problem is as we know, being too early and being wrong is the same thing.
Except right now, in that allegory, every piece of fiber is being used. So like every available
every fiber is being used now, 30 years later.
But that's the thing, is the build out is being consumed right now. Everything that is created is being used. At some point, that might not be the case.
Right. So that's the point, though. Like in the early days of the internet, it was all being used. So then every company came in and then built out more fiber.
Right.
So
but what we're saying is like the fiber build out is a future thing. What we're talking about right now is synthesizing compute that exists.
Yes. I mean, I agree with you. I don't think it necessarily, they're trying to commoditize it because it's more profitable for them to commoditize.
Right.
And whether or not that's a good idea or not, I guess the world won't know until it's actually done. But for me, I think there's just so much complication in this build out and so many people getting involved. I feel like we're going to look back in like 10 and 15 years and been like, that was crazy. Whenever
things get out of hand, it's because they become overcomplicated and people look for more and more and more. And I have a question about surveys. Have you ever answered a finance survey?
No.
Yeah.
That's why I never believe any political or finance or any survey ever, because the people that respond are already either mad or super happy.
Or there are types of people who respond to surveys. Some of them,
I'm not friends with any of them, but they're out there.
Some of them have to be incentivized.
Yeah.
There's a Starbucks gift card, for example. Please complete this survey.
I am friends with one of them. I am friends with one of them who does that.
So Betterment did a survey of Gen Z investors.
Yeah.
And they surveyed 1,000 Gen Z investors, which I think that's a pretty small number. But so take that for what it's worth. And they published the results, and they found, and this is how when you get a survey and you just transmute this information into a fact, 22% of Gen Z investors look at gambling as a part of their financial plan. Okay. So they found 250 people who are looking at the predictions market essentially as a part of their asset allocation and their financial plan. And I think that's pretty bad, honestly. I think 250 people that they found pretty quickly. I'm not sure we need any of those people to be doing that, but that doesn't suggest that 22% of all of Tory's population are.
Well, think about Gen Z investors. Gen Z's only been out of college for, I'm at the very top.
No Gen Zers have money right now. They're all fresh out of college.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think 27.
They all have college debt.
And they have even less money because they're betting it all on predictions market.
Yeah, I know.
Seriously, so that makes sense to me, honestly. It's probably not that crazy.
Right.
I mean, I do know a lot of young people.
If you're 25 years old, why do you need a long-term financial plan? Hey, your world at 50 years from now, you should have no idea what that looks like or what you're going to need for it.
What I will say is, and I don't know, I'd be curious to get a copy of the survey to see what the question actually said.
Oh, what it's like?
Yeah, because it could have been what percentage of your income do you put towards sports betting?
Yeah,
or something like that, and then it would take that and extrapolate it and say, well, this person takes $200 a month and puts it towards, whatever it
Right.
might be.
It's
And then it's like,
fucking
that's part of their long-term investing strategy.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's so taken out of context. We don't even know what the question was. And then to publish a headline like that is just hilariously misleading.
Yeah, because then people walk around repeating that type of stuff.
Correct.
And it's Jessica sent something from her mom's best friend.
Okay.
So we're talking like a mid-70s woman on Facebook.
Okay.
And it was a video of, I think it was Biden, Obama, George W. Bush, and Clinton.
So it was AI.
So it was AI. And they were all singing a song about like the value of America and like what I can't remember, some country song about America.
She thought it was legit.
But I'm worried that she did. And I'm like, you need to question this. And also I find it interesting that people are grabbing George W. Bush now and saying a champion. Like they put Obama and George Bush in the same category. This is the world we live in now, where people who voted for Obama hated George Bush.
Right, exactly.
And now he's like a hero. Like comparatively,
people are quick to forget.
We like Bush, but yeah, I think that we live in a time where we need to question more and more and more and more. So like every time you see a survey like this, like you're asking the right questions about, what were the prompts that those responders were given. And then we're also asking questions like, what are you really trying to take? What's the point? Right. What is the point of this survey? Why are we even surveying Gen Z about their financial habits right now?
If it surveyed me, it was just like, do you go out to bars and restaurants as a 23-year-old? And then it would be like, yes. And it's like, how much do you spend at bars and restaurants? It's like, oh, I go out with my friends every Friday and Saturday night. I spend like $40. Then the news article would be like, 30% of all Gen Z, like millennial money goes towards bars.
At
like
least
that's not true.
$4,000.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. That stuff's just ridiculous. But what I will say is, on Instagram and Facebook and all these other places, I'm constantly seeing like profiles and ads and all these things. Like there was someone who I almost followed the other day whose whole profile was fake, and it was like a fake person saying fake stuff, and turns out it wasn't a real person. I found it in the comments. I mean, you could see like things were slightly off and it looked like too perfect, and I went to the comments and they're all like, yeah, this is totally fake.
It really feels like more and more and more we're just going to want to be offline.
Yeah.
I
think Tori said something yesterday or day before that was interesting. She was like, I feel like AI is the death of social media.
Yeah, well, here's hoping.
That wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yes.
Keep YouTube though. I need my cooking stuff.
Yeah. We should talk about the Trump accounts though, because I thought that one of the articles that we were sent for our homework was actually pretty interesting, suggesting that the people who are taking advantage of the Trump
are already
accounts
wealthy people,
are already more financially literate. They know to take advantage of the Trump accounts.
Yeah.
And I think that there is something to that. I wouldn't go like, I think that the article headline was like, are Trump accounts increasing the wealth divide?
Right.
Jesus Christ. Like you can put $5,000 in those things. Like it's not.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not being specific, but.
So the person that is putting 5,000 to 6,000 in the Trump account already has 5,000 to 6,000. It's not a free 5,000 to 6,000. So it's not like the wealth divide didn't already exist and like the government just handed them another $6,000.
But it can continue to create.
It's going to compound.
Yeah. But I think that financial literacy is kind of the point. That the goal is, here's a Trump account. Let's talk about financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to increase awareness, increase conversation, make sure people understand what their financial habits should or could look like. And I think that's already happening. Actually, we were just knocking a survey of Gen Z investors, but I do think people are aware of Roth IRAs, for example, at a younger age. They've come of age in a time where they had Robinhood and just like easy access to investing and unfortunately gambling on their phones.
Yeah.
And I think that there's already an increase in financial literacy. So this article predisposes that that's not happening and that it's just going to lead to this wealth divide.
I remember growing up, it was always, the things you don't talk about at the dinner table, money, politics. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I do feel as if My friends and I are having more and more conversations around finances.
Great.
The people I know who have children are talking to their kids about finances more. Like it's in my mind becoming more socially acceptable to talk about finances. And I do think that social media is actually a big part of that because social media is talking about it. So kids are going to see it. So parents have to have those conversations, which I think is
Yeah.
a healthy thing versus not talking with your kids about it.
I think that maybe to a degree, I don't, what's that phrase, like on the margins, or at the core of it, social media is either good or bad. Like if you were to distill it down
Yeah.
and you had to choose good or bad, the financial literacy that has been raised by social media is probably offset significantly by the in your face consumption and the haves. That is just like when I was Tori's age, I couldn't just pull out my phone and look at all these people have all those things or travel to
Sure.
all these places or compare. Like the source of comparison is so extreme and so consistent. So now, yeah, sure. Like, yes, you could know to contribute to your Roth IRA, but that isn't going to get you that trip to Milan that person on Instagram
Or that
just
fancy car or house or whatever.
So I
Yeah.
think people feel worse off than they actually are in some ways because, look, when I was 25 years old, I didn't have any money.
None.
I had
Yeah.
tons of debt.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a house. I didn't have an IRA. I didn't have a 401k. I didn't have a non-qualified Robinhood account. I didn't have money that I could just gamble away on an app. And I'm just one person. But when you're young, you're supposed to struggle. You're not supposed to have it all right away.
Yeah. You're
And
supposed to figure this stuff out.
yeah, but like the get rich quick has always been a scheme. It's always been a concept, but it's more and more and more in your face now.
I am always feeling like I'm missing out. I have
Yeah.
FOMO constantly,
Yeah.
and pretty much all of that comes from social media or the web in general. Like I've never, like I look at my friends and family and everything, and I'm more happy for them than anything. Like if they get something or a new car or house or whatever it is, trip, like I'm pumped for them. But then when you go online and you see this like stuff in your face, I always feel like I'm personally missing out. Like I always go back to cars and, growing up, I always wanted like some fun cars. And now it's like I see these cars and the car I wanted that was like 80,000 is now $400,000. And I'm like, I'm never going to be able to get this. Like I need to work harder and get it. And how do all these other people get it? And you can't not have those thoughts. The car market is a whole nother thing to digest, but it is in your face. It is unhealthy. So to your point, there is that bad side of it. But I do think that it is good that people are starting to talk about finances more, which will hopefully increase some education in
I
the
th-
finance space.
Yeah, I think the problem is when we don't know how to talk about finance. And I think just to go back to what you said, when I was the poorest in my life, like the multiple, like, there were a few points where I had just like no
Mhm.
money. I didn't feel like I was missing out. And I
Yeah.
think if I lived that way today, like if I was younger and didn't have any money in this current environment, I would feel constantly like I'm missing out. And that might drive you to achieve more. It also might drive you to take more unnecessary risks.
Of course. Yeah. And it's also like, why are you trying so hard to just get a material object that's not going to bring any more happiness? Because outside of that material object, there's going to be another one.
I don't even know if it's an object. It's like a lifestyle. It's like this, like
Sure.
everything that this person does sounds great, And there's a documentary coming out. It's called, I want to say like The Surge, or no, I don't know, The Surge of on Paradise or something like that. It's basically about a small town in, I want to say, Italy, that has like 4,000 people that
Mhm.
live there. And then every year the tourists come in and drive that like
Oh, yeah.
population up 10, 20x over the course of tourist season,
Sure.
and how they really, really hate these tourists. And this is happening a lot. Like overseas, people are getting sick of all the tourist crowds coming through because they saw it on Instagram or
Yeah.
whatever. I think that there's just this idea out there that you can go anywhere, do anywhere, be anyone you want, etc. And it makes it really hard to just be you.
That's fair. I think that's a good place to end it.
All right.
I think that's good. I like it.
All right.
Like, subscribe, share with a friend.
All right.
I
Let's
love
do
it. Sounds good. Thanks, Wheeler.
The information in this material is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Investment advice offered through Integrated Partners, doing business as Ko-Fi Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor. Integrated Partners does not provide legal, tax, mortgage advice or services. Please consult your legal tax advisor regarding your specific situation. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investing involves risk, including loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. The economic forecasts set forth in this material may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that the strategies promoted will be successful.
Compound Growth with Wheeler and Colin, sponsored by Ko-Fi Advisors. Reach out today. Yay!